Okay, so welcome all today. Today you are going to present your final translational potential pitch. So the pitch is 4 minutes and the questions will be 10 minutes. For the pitch, when you have 1 minute left, I will do this so that you can see that there's 1 minute left. I think we can just start with SensUs. So I will welcome you to the stage.
Hi, everyone. We're SensUs. My name is Bella.
My name is Mikey.
And we're from Raleigh, North Carolina. We're here to tell you about the translational potential of our sensor. Imagine you're a kidney patient on a transplant list. In America, you may be on that list for 3 to 5 years. And within that time frame, you'll have to go through the therapeutic drug monitoring pipeline multiple times, which is very costly in both time and money. But what if we could eliminate steps in this timeline, eliminating that first doctor visit and the blood collection and sample preparation required to make decisions for your health? What if we could turn this into this, preventing hospitalizations, reducing long-term costs with a portable, reusable, and rapid and continuous way to monitor our health? And what if we could have that way to monitor our health for only $90 a month or a little over $1,000 a year? Introducing Q-Test, a portable, reusable, rapid, and continuous way to take your kidney health and place it back in your hands. Our sensor is pictured here, as well as our way of monitoring, which is a mobile app that can be shared easily from patient to clinician.
So we would like to partner with 3 different groups of companies for the consumer side of our product. So our first partnership will be with insurance companies in the US. So these companies will help us subsidize our sensor, allowing more people to access our sensor since they're less expensive. Nonprofit organizations such as the American Society of Nephrology and the American Kidney Fund will help us improve the credibility of our sensor. And specifically, the ASN will help us educate doctors about our sensor so that they are more likely to recommend and prescribe our sensor to patients. Lastly, pharmaceutical companies such as Pfizer and Lilly, they will help us with FDA approval, which will allow us to start selling our sensor on the market, and also with starting clinical trials. So on the supplier side, we would like to partner with Medline, which is a medical grade manufacturer and distributor. They will manufacture any non-technical aspects of our product, such as packaging, and they will also ship our products to all over where we need it. Our reagent supplier will be MilliporeSigma for chemicals for testing and R&D, and our PCBs will be made by Flex. All 3 companies are international, so once we have a good hold in the US market, we will switch to international markets, and those companies will help us. And our next steps is R&D, so getting our sensor as good as it can be, so our most efficient and accurate sensor. Then regulatory compliance, which will be the FDA in the beginning, and then we'll move on to other regulatory agencies. And lastly, marketing and sales, just getting the word out about our sensor.
So for our target audience, we are choosing kidney transplantees. So currently in the US, there are approximately 90,000 patients on that wait list. And the average time on this wait list can be 5 years. And this process has a lot of impersonal post-operational care, so we hope to bridge this gap between doctor and patient. So we want to start in the United States with just kidney transplant recipients, and then we want to expand that to all of acute kidney injury patients in the United States. And then finally, we want to take that to a global level, focusing not only on transplantees on a global level, but also acute kidney injury patients. And we estimate in 10 years to receive about 98.4 million euros. This is Q-Test, portable, reusable, rapid, and continuous monitoring system. And thank you. Are there any questions?
Okay, sorry. Thank you very much for the pitch. I have a couple clarification questions. So you mentioned the pricing will be 90 USD per month. What's your profit margin on that?
So our profit margin, we haven't calculated the exact amount that we would have for, like we have our total revenue calculated. Oops, that's not that. There. We haven't calculated exactly because we're not sure how much labor it's going to need to produce all of the sensors. I believe, do you remember the estimate from the TRD? Estimating a profit of 80 grand a month, but those numbers may have changed.
So 80,000 a month for revenues of how much per month?
I'm confused by the question. So are you
Yeah,
asking how
but
much profit we'll make per month?
Well, because if you know your cost per month, then you know also your profit per month. You know your profit margin.
I'm not sure of that number right now.
Also, in your TRD, you mentioned that the labor cost was on average 20 USD per hour, which seems to be a bit low from personal experience. So how was it established? And what kind of labor what do you need for that?
So in our TRD, there were some things that weren't updated in time before we turned them in. That was including just the manufacturing costs, where we estimated a salary of, I believe, $25 per hour of just one or two clinicians in a lab running equipment, but that did not include the cost of like actually having people hired. So there was a mistake in our team results document.
Okay. And maybe one last question. So you mentioned that you want to partner with big pharma like Lilly, for example, and Pfizer. So what will be the incentive for them to partner with, or what are you going to give to them to partner with them?
So companies such as Pfizer and Lilly, so by partnering with them, we are providing some diagnostic material, and that can help them prescribe their drugs using our sensor. So doctors, so they can use the info that our sensor provides them to provide more personal care, which will come from treatments such as from Pfizer and Lilly. So it'll be more. So we'll send business their way by providing more accurate and personal care.
Okay. So is there any financial partnership in the sense that are you going to give equity to these companies to be able to partner with them?
Probably yes.
Okay. Do you have an idea of how does it work? How do you approach that to be able to partner with them?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thanks for the pitch and also for a nice detailed clinical translation part in the TRD. I was wondering, I think the plan is quite clear for the US case, and you mentioned that you want to go global afterwards. I wonder if you can give some more details about that and what the plan is in that case.
So we wanted to start with the United States because we have about 22% of global AKI cases, and to transition from United States to a global market, we want to start with FDA regulations, since the United States has very strict laws regarding medical microdevices entering the market. So once we are able to establish our microdevice and get it into the market, we can build up to the European level, make sure everything is up to standards, and then through our manufacturers, on the next slide, this will help us get connections to the European and Asian, like Asia, Europe. Yeah. Yeah.
So you will go to Europe first and then Asia, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. That's right. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the first pitch. Congratulations. And I have one question. You mentioned kidney transplant patient as a target group, which might be a more difficult group to start with. Why did you choose these, besides that they have a direct kidney problem and kidney issue and they need to be monitored very closely? But why target specifically those transplant patients? Because it's only a small margin of your patient population.
So we wanted to start with a more specific audience because we wanted to be able to target their needs better. We also have some connections with the university, East Carolina University in North Carolina, which has a department that focuses on kidney transplants. So we received some information from them about what patients directly need, and starting with a smaller audience made it easier to address the needs of our audience. And from there, we may find that we need to make some adjustments to account for all acute kidney injury patients, but that can happen with further research and development. We just wanted to start small.
Okay, thank you. And then your second target, acute kidney patients. Well, the acute phase is basically when from a chronic disease it's becoming acute, of course, and then they end up in hospital. But the more larger population of kidney failure is the chronic population. And I was wondering, is your device going to be exclusively used in hospital or also at home monitoring?
Yeah, do you want to answer? So the whole purpose of our sensor is that you can use it at home and you won't have to go into the hospital to use the sensor. So obviously for an initial visit to learn how to use the sensor to apply it, the patients will have to go in to the hospital and receive the device, receive information. But we want them to be able to monitor their kidney health, their levels of creatinine at home. So that way that can eliminate going into the hospital, having to have the expensive tests done. And if something isn't wrong, they won't need to make that expensive trip. If something is wrong, they can contact their doctor and then schedule an appointment. So at-home care is sort of the premise of how we want our sensor to work.
And we definitely want this to be a proactive measure. So if someone has family history of having kidney disease or is worried or maybe showing early signs, they can get in contact with a doctor and begin testing to stay on top of their levels and put their mind at ease because it is inexpensive. So we're just giving them more opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Small question, price per test, what would that then be? Or, yeah, it's continuous, of course, but, you know, can you estimate like one measurement, how much would it cost?
Our plan was for the cost to be $100 per sensor. So this information, there's some more of it in our other pitch, but I can definitely share it now. Our sensors, we're estimating they'll last about 10 days. And then there's an electronic component that will be reused, similar to a CGM. Our electronics component, we estimate, will last a lot longer because our frequency of testing is every 3 hours. So the battery life will last much longer. So the cost for the electronics that lasts 6 months is $300. And for the sensor itself, with the electrodes, the application, the microneedle patch, that will all be $100, but that's before insurance. The commercial insurance, that's how we have those estimates for how much it would cost, usually $90 a month. Under commercial insurance, some insurances cover less, some cover more.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your pitch. I have a question, a quick question on the commercialization strategy. If what I liked is that you approach, at least you have the idea to approach different partners, American Kidney Fund, and also insurance companies, and the American Society for Nephrology. However, I was wondering, these are quite big names. How do you actually plan to approach them? So what is the exact plan here? So did you make maybe already an expert interview with them, or did you have some first contacts with them?
Mm-hmm. So we listed definitely some larger companies, especially for our key partners. these are just examples. While we would love to partner with Pfizer and Lilly, Pfizer actually has an office right down the road from where we're from in North Carolina. And we do have connections. One of our coaches works for Lilly. So we have some connections within those organizations. But we also understand that it will be difficult to obtain partnerships with all of these organizations. This is just a goal.
I was more looking into the insurance companies. So what exactly do you think you would need to provide them as information that they actually buy your story?
So that's actually where a lot of the FDA regulations come in hand. So once we fill out all of the paperwork, we get all of our measures in order to ensure that the device is safe for the market. We would then be able to give this information to the insurance companies, and that's verified because it's federal, that we would be able to then work with them and they would get rates for us.
Okay. And maybe I think we're running out of time.
Yeah, the 10 minutes are over.
Okay, okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Thank you so much for your questions and for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the next one is Sensing Barcelona.
We talked with one of your partners from the organization, and he told us we could send a new presentation if we sent it yesterday before 12 p.m. And it was the old one. Can we just change the laptop?
Yeah, okay. If you do it quick.
Hello? Yes. So, good morning, everyone. Again, we are Vicent and Blanca from Sensing Barcelona team, and we're going to present our translational potential for our creatinine sensor. So, this is the Camp Nou, one of the most iconic places in Barcelona, our city, and one of the largest stadiums in the world. Now, imagine 21 of these stadiums full of people. This is the equivalent of patients dying from acute kidney injury every day. This is the reality we are facing today, and we must do something. But what exactly is acute kidney injury?
So, acute kidney injury is a silent but deadly disease that affects millions of people around the world. We have taken into account two very important facts. The first one being that 50% of ICU patients end up developing AKI. The second one being that these patients, due to its malfunction of the kidneys, have to end up being attached to the dialysis machine. So, what if we imagine a world where we have an integrated sensor to the dialysis machine? Here we present our sensor, the Akinator. It is a continuous creatinine sensor that can be attached to the dialysis machine and that can relieve the following pains. First of all, it can reduce the clinical load, it can prevent possible complications of the disease, and finally, it can help doing a personalized treatment to those patients.
Okay, so Our target market are companies that produce and commercialize dialysis machines. So due to Spain's aging population and the incidence of acute kidney injuries, we first plan to partner with companies from these countries, such as Grifols, Baxter, Medtronic, which are based here, which have a base, like Baxter, Brown, and this kind of companies. This connection will let us integrate our sensor in already existing dialysis systems and tackle the healthcare need we are solutioning. So the dialysis market in Spain is 2.12 billion, so it is a very strong market to enter. Additionally, there is significant potential for extension to other regions like other parts of Europe or the US, where the market is also highly lucrative. So our revenue consists on not only selling the sensor itself, but also ongoing sales from consumables and changeable parts. Additionally, we offer a software-based subscription for storing and analysis our patients' data. So we intend to have a continuous revenue which adds value to our company and our partners.
Now, what is our differential value? First of all, it's affordability, as when doing one sample only costs 0.6 cents. Second of all, it is a very accessible device, not only because of its affordability, but also because of its low-cost production. And final, but not least, it's a very adaptable sensor, as we can explore new future lines. For example, we could also apply this sensor to monitor creatinine in chemotherapy patients, or in a far future, maybe also in monitor creatinine in endurance athletes. Now, thank you very much for hearing our presentation. Sensing is future, and the future is Barcelona.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I was interested in the technique you use because we were at your TRD, of course, and I was surprised that you used the Jaffe method. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? And yeah, why did you choose that? Because it's not used anymore.
So, well, we have to say that we had a very limited budget, limited time. So, taking into account that Jaffe reaction uses like very basic reagents, then that we also use colorimetry with a very simple setup with a Raspberry Pi, which also is very affordable electronic system that is also very scalable because it's cheap. So, yeah, we go for that because it was like we could do with the budget we had.
Okay. And also we were interested in doing a low-cost production sensor, and using a camera, using the reaction of Jaffe reaction. All those things are inexpensive, so that's why we also try to make that with Jaffe reaction.
I understand, but you do know that Jaffe method is very, how do you say it? There's a high risk of interference. Also, the specificity. I hate that word. You know what I mean? It's lower than the enzyme method, for instance. So, you chose this. So, how would you use further testing to overcome this issue? Have you thought about that? You know, you need to bring a reliable product on the market. So, could you more elaborate on that? How you would test that?
Yeah. So, with our specialized team, we were willing to like optimize the process and also improve the components to make it pass the regulatory approvals we need to commercialize our product. So, yeah.
And also, as we are attaching this to a dialysis machine, already the dialysis machine can take the sample, like we can take the sample of the blood person from there, and we will apply filters and those things to make the blood like without blood red cells and those kind of things. And we have also to explore how to make it better in that way, because we know that Jaffe reaction has those problems. But in the future, we hope that we can filter enough the blood and improve our sample that way.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. I have one question regarding your business case. So I like the idea to implement it in a dialysis device, and you also present some market numbers here. So the market numbers for dialysis, of course, they're huge, which is it's a big issue in all European countries. So that looks like a great number. But what exact part of this can you actually address? So what part of these billions is actually accessible, and which one of this could be shared with you if you bring in really an added value of your technology? What do you assume? How much percentage?
Well, now we don't know the exact number, but we are starting with the ICU patients because they are also attached to a lot of machines. One of them can be dialysis machine. So that's why it's not only dialysis machine, but dialysis machine applied into ICU patients. So, and we know that 50% of those patients in ICU patients are with end up developing ACI. So, more or less the number will be like this.
I was more thinking in a direction. Did you make a calculation? Let's say if your system works, it's implemented. Could you, let's say, optimize the usability of one device, that it can be used because maybe one patient can leave the dialysis earlier, another one can be transferred to it earlier. So did you make a calculation? Where can you really generate, let's say, a business opportunity for the hospital or for the insurance companies?
Well, it's a very interesting question, and we'd like to research more about this topic, but right now I cannot answer this question, unfortunately.
And I have another critical question. It's more also regarding the sensing system. So you argued that you choose a low-cost device to have a cheap measurement. However, I was wondering, like, did you make did you have an exchange with some experts from the dialysis company? Because this is really high-end machines. I'm wondering if they would be actually open to integrate low-cost sensing, or especially because this treatment is anyway very expensive, they might even be open to go for if there's a better but more costly solution. How's your approach to that?
Well, now we had talked with only doctors, and they were quite interested about having this sensor to a dialysis machine, but we haven't approached to the companies yet. We have tried though, and they wanted to know how we were doing in this competition, so maybe after this we will be able to contact them and look for what they think about in the end about all of this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your nice presentation. I have a question. I read in your TRD that every now and then, every 2 hours, your system also requires a renewal of the reactants. Did you take into account in the number that you quote per measurement, the cost, also take into account like service costs of handling the renewal of the
Yeah, so
reactants?
that's part of our revenue at the end. As it's a low-cost device, we don't expect to make profits from the sensor itself, but from the consumption of these reagents we can provide to the hospital, then also from the software we have developed. So yeah, we have thought about it, and we think we would sell directly to the hospital.
So is that something that you would do as a service for the hospital to renew the reactants, or is that something that they could
Yeah,
do?
it's something should be talked with our partners from the manufacturer of the dialysis machine itself. So what should we do? But we could do it if they wanted to.
Okay, and the time that you invest in that by doing that locally, is that included in the price per measurement right now?
Right now, it isn't.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
There's 2.5 minutes left.
Got it.
Yeah, thank you. So I have a question also on the cost. So what is the profit on the cost of the consumable? So you mentioned that it only costs like 0.006 cents, but how much profit do you make on that?
So we should talk with our partners to see how much does it cost and then how much profit do we get. But as we told, so we don't have exactly numbers of for which amount of money would you sell our sensor to the companies, but we will make little profit because, as I said, we expect to earn more money from other revenues as the reagents and the software and these kind of things.
And also, how much time will it take you to enter the market, and how much funding would you need to enter the market?
So as it is a low budget device, we don't need a lot of investment. It's true we should think about how the produce process would it be optimized, so we reduce producing cost and these kinds of things. So maybe we still have to make a lot of research too, because there are things that could be better. So maybe in 2 years and a half.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for your attention.
Thanks for the pitch. Great start. Following with this question, I wonder if you have considered the regulatory costs into account when making your financial projections and also the timeline.
Okay, so yeah, we have thought about regulatory approval. We would like to get both CE and FDA to expand our product. We know our sensor right now would not pass this approval, but we are confident that with some research and some improvements, we will get it in just these 2.5 years, I told your colleague.
Okay, and do you have an idea about what the cost might be associated to that?
We still haven't figured it out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. There are 50 seconds left. Maybe just one small question.
Is it small? Let me think. Yeah, maybe you could. Yeah, I don't think it's really small, but I was curious just about now. How would you think of the integration in dialysis machine? It's very interesting concept, but how would it work in practice in hospital? And how does the patient see it? Do you have a warning system? How is it integrated in the whole system?
So our plan was like it's for ICU patients. So they are connected to a dialysis machine. So at some point, part of the blood that is running through the machine will go out to our sensor and will sense the amount of creatinine that is the concentration in the blood. So it will get values every now and then, each time. So a specific concentration. If this concentration is like very deviated from the previous one, meaning that could be developing acute kidney injury, we would install like an alarm into the dialysis machine or our sensor part. So the doctors and the sanitary personnel would know that something is happening. But anyways, they would have like continuous monitoring and they could store in the software.
And also I would like to add that the blood sample that we need is very little one, because we just need microliters of blood to do the testing. So we will just take a little bit of blood like each time, and it will be spaced in time. So the patient won't lose blood like for doing this sensing technique.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And the next one is AgoSense.
Okay, thank you.
Is it a... Okay. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this presentation from AgroSense. So we're a team of students from 3 different engineering schools of Paris-Saclay University, and today we will present the translation potential of the sensor we have developed for this contest. So let's talk first a little about the market. So the market of biosensing for kidney disease is a fast-growing market estimated at 1.3 billion USD, with competitors lacking mainly one thing: continuous monitoring. Currently, the sensors are complex, costly, and not continuous. So our unique offering here is that our product provides not only continuous biosensing, but also a user-friendly app supporting research while collecting a lot of data with no patent barriers. So this product could be used to obtain stable revenues from sales, and with a future goal on creating an all-in-one patch for easier use for everyone to control their creatinine levels for both patients or GP to be able to track the patient at risk directly in their office. So our target audience is primarily patients, but also doctors and disease stakeholders, so pharmacists and things like this, offering for them easy, continuous health monitoring via their mobile phone. The benefit is that it enhances patient care, reduces treatment time, lowers cost, and it aids research with data privacy, ensuring strict confidentiality from private entities, while providing data for the research and medical to help develop treatments. So now let's speak about the financial viability. From our product, how can we make it into a viable financial startup? So our sensor costs currently 370 euros, with potential reductions to scaling and automation, with an initial development cost of 6,000 euros and a goal of 4,000 euros for future development to get into an all-in-one patch. So our pricing strategy is to mark up the price by 20%, ensuring profitability and allowing us to invest in these developments to obtain our patch and be able to have a sensor that's both affordable and profitable for us. The revenue streams come from sensor sales, with potential data monetization also for the research center and for the medical teams, and future development of our portable, long-lasting patch. So let's speak at the end of our business feasibility to sum up everything and have a clear message at the end. So our value proposition is a small patch with an innovative method to detect creatinine using a simple and intuitive interface. Our key activities would be to save for pharmacies and doctors with activities on patch renewal with a fast maintenance, and custom relationships based on relationships with patients and with doctors' associations. For the costs and revenues, we can see that it aligns quite well, that the revenue stream aligns quite well with our costs, which are the components and assemblies, the server maintenance revenues from the purchase of our product. So thank you very much, and if you have any questions, feel free to add them. Thank you.
Thank you for your pitch. So I have a couple clarification questions. So you mentioned a development cost of 6,000 euros. What was included in that? So
in fact, this is the price we invested to develop entirely a prototype that is presented here at SensUs.
And how much would it cost for you to enter the market? I'm sure there's still more work to be done.
There's a little more work to be done, but I think our produce only need like 2,000 to 3,000 euros to be able to work at least for point of care for a product that can be used in a GP's office, for example, to take measurements of creatinine. For the complete patch, I think it would require maybe like 5,000 euros. I'm not very sure of the price because we still need to miniaturize everything.
And so that's technological development cost, but there's also quite a few other costs to enter the market. For example, have you considered the cost of getting a regulatory approval, the cost of marketing, of labor as well? Because I'm sure you haven't paid yourself yet, but at some point you will want to get paid. So do you have an idea of that?
Thank you. For our own labor, we don't have an idea because it was all on our free time. But for the rest, you said the development.
There's marketing. There's regulatory approval cost.
Marketing. For now, we imagined that it was around like 2,000-ish to have a first approach to marketing, to say, hey, you company, come with us because we have the perfect sensor in the idea.
I think it will be probably a bit more than 2,000 euros, but
yeah.
Also, I would like to ask that when we calculated the cost, I also added an estimation of the cost of our labor. So it's included in the cost of the production of the sensor.
Okay.
It's not.
Thank you.
Thank you for your story. I was wondering, so the market is considerable. Do you have an idea of how many customers you could actually reach with your product?
In France alone, we know that there is 3 million people suffering from chronic kidney disease. So this will be our targets with 19,000, I think, that are terminally ill. So our special target for us. Mm-hmm. But I think we could increase a little this number by going out of France to sell our sensor and also take into account the fact that some patients do not currently have a chronic kidney disease but can develop them and want to have a preventive monitoring for their creatinine levels.
Just to add, we have an agreement with one of the Paris hospital, the Robert Debré Hospital, that has agreed to aid us in the development of our sensor and to let us test it on real samples. It's a pediatric hospital, so we can't use that much blood, but it's okay because our sensor is very small.
But would it, for the number of patients, do you have an idea of the amount of market share that you could achieve with this product, also compared to other measuring methods?
Can you repeat, please? I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch all of it you said.
So you mentioned the total number of kidney disease patients in France. But do you have an impression of what the market share is that you could achieve with your product as compared to other diagnostic methods?
As my friend said, the golden method to detect creatinine, at least in France, is the spectroscopy, mass spectrometry, sorry. And that's very cumbersome. It's a heavy method, so it's very not user-friendly for the hospital, and it's a lot of costs for the hospital. So our sensor, which will be far cheaper compared to it, will attract a lot of attention if we market it right. And with the help of the Paris hospital, we can achieve the connection to the rest of the hospital of France.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for your presentation. I have a question regarding the how you plan to bring the value proposition to your customer. And you have shown that in the very beginning different routes of the commercialization. And one goes through the wholesaler pharmacies and the client, and the other goes through the doctor. And then can you explain me the difference there? Maybe you can jump there to I think it's the second slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, here. So, because it seems like you're only advertising towards the doctors, yeah? And then can you explain me how do the doctors would then purchase the sensors from the wholesaler?
Yeah, exactly. Our goal is to inform the doctor that an alternative is possible with our sensor. So there will be the first inform. With the use of media like Instagram, etc., the patients will be at the end informed too, because a lot of patients talk about it on the internet. So they will learn to they will learn it too thanks to the medias. And we plan to also talk about it to the pharmacy, because they will be the one who are going to sell it, even though the doctors are going to be the one to prescribe it. So if the pharmacy doesn't have it, it's going to be a problem.
And I have a question regarding the doctors. So if you compare the current solution that they offer to the patient, they're sending it, maybe they take a sample, sending it to a mass spec laboratory, and they can of course charge that, the doctors, to the insurance companies. And sometimes for doctors, it's very important also to charge a certain height of the treatment for the patient. How can you convince the doctors that they can make more profit with your approach?
Because it will take them less time in the day. We have in France, but maybe in the rest of Europe and the world, we have like a doctor deficiency and a nurse deficiency. And if we shorten the time it takes the doctor to see one patient for that kind of disease, they will have time to see more patients, and that way have profitability. But in the end, our product is not technically that profitable to them, because we just simplify the day, but not give them more money.
Mm-hmm. And one more question regarding also what I found also not clearly explained in your TRD was the types of wholesaler and pharmacies. So this is such a huge, do you have an idea how many pharmacies you have in France?
A lot. No, I don't have the number on hand. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, especially because pharmacies, they are so abundant, and you find them everywhere. Like this is really the most abundant kind of shop that you can find in a city. It will be just very difficult. So it could be recommended to start maybe to specify it a little bit more, and maybe start with a specific branch of a pharmacy. And say, okay, this type of pharmacy we're gonna attack first. But this was not really clear. Also, the type of wholesaler. There's so many different wholesalers. Did you think there's a little bit more through which one you exactly want to approach?
I'm sorry, but we didn't think that much about like the wholesalers we want to target and the pharmacies we want to target. So I'm sorry, I won't have much to expand on your question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Luckily, the mass spec isn't used for creatinine on a daily basis. It's the gold standard. It's expensive, but we do have automated machines in the laboratory. So actually, creatinine is one of the most measured parameters on a daily basis in hospital. Do you have an idea on how many tests are run in the hospital? Maybe through an interview with like a nephrologist or the ICU, or.
We did have an interview with a nephrologist from the Parisian hospital, and he told us, but I forgot the number. But it was, I don't want to say a wrong thing, but yeah, we did have the information, and it will. I don't quite remember. I'm sorry.
That's no problem. I don't know either how many creatinines we do, but then would it be then for your product be profitable to incorporate it in hospital, or would you rather use it at home with the patient? I'm sorry, I thought I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, for the moment, our sensor is mainly able to do a lot of precise measurements at one time, so it could be very useful, I think, in a hospital and for doctors to have a cheap way to obtain fastly the level of creatinine from point to point. And then, yes, the idea of the patch is to reach patients at home and to discharge the hospitals from having too many patients to take care of for the creatinine levels.
Okay, and so which department in the hospital would you choose then to target? Because I think you have like a large target group, but
yes. Well, I think the nephrology department would be a very good starting point. But yes, after that, like.
Yeah, after that, the lab department, because every time they take a blood sample, they also detect the creatinine in case there is a problem they didn't see in the future. But with that way, it will be easier for them to do it. So the nephrology department, the lab department of the hospital, and maybe afterwards we can see if it's interests the rest of the hospital.
okay, thank you. I have more questions, but the time is gone. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. So the next one is already on the screen.
Hello. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah, cool. Yes. So, hello everybody. Thank you all for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Erwin, and on behalf of WD Sense, I would like to present an economic argument for the implementation of our sensor in clinical sense. So, let's begin with a little look of how our sensor looks like. So, in broad sense, our sensor consists of two components. There's a cartridge with a lot of electrochemical basic stuff in there. And there's also a functionalized electrode. And this functionalized electrode is a bit interesting because that's the bottleneck of our setup. That bit lasts for only about 24 measurements, so that will be kind of a unit that I'm using to quantify everything with. Okay, so the sales price per 24 measurements, that would be the first thing that would be interested in, and that would be around 50 euros per 24 measurements. We make a decent margin on that. To quickly show you, this is the cost per 24 measurements in the cartridge. It's not that high because it can last for quite a long time. And then, of course, there's also the functionalized electrode. The cost per 24 measurements is a bit higher. It's around 30 euros. But still, that leaves a total production cost of 37 euros, well below the 50 of the sales price. So good margin for us. So that's our side of the story. Then there's also, of course, the side of the hospital. So let's look a bit about that. The hospital based its treatments on the KDIGO scale, and the higher up in the scale, the more treatment you need and the more cost it will take. The cost consists of medication, the occupancy of beds, and of course dialysis. Dialysis is a huge one. It really spikes the cost. To give some numbers to that, stage 1, the least interesting stage in a way, is around 3,300, and then if it gets more serious, more like 11,000, and then 57,000 if you're really, really sick. And incidence rates are, of course, interesting to know, and luckily most people are least sick. And if we then express that in an average expected cost per AKI patient, we come to this number, like 9,500, which is a really, really high number. Luckily, there is a little bit of hope. The earlier you detect AKI, the less severe it will be, and the more you can reduce cost. And that's where we step in. So now let's look how it would. Let's have a look at how it would be in a real clinical sense. And we're going to do this by an imaginary case. So imagine we attach every patient entering the door for admission with one of our sensors. And we do a measurement for the creatinine serum level every 2 hours. 2 hours is maybe a bit on the long side, but the hour scale is where you should want to be for a creatinine sensor to really be accurate. How would that look like? In that case, the cost per patient entering the door would increase by 100 euros because 2 hours, and the average time that a patient stays in hospital is around 4 days. So that total would sum up to 100 euros. And you would need to get that back at the financial side. So
that would, if you do a lot of calculation math, we need to decrease the cost of AKI in the end by around 500 euros, which is a decrease of around 5.2%. That seems like a high number, but if you recall that the dialysis is the most expensive part, and the earlier you can detect it, the less severe it is and less need for dialysis, we feel that this is a very, very, very reachable number. Of course, in the end, we need to do a lot of clinical testing, but we believe that this is viable in a way. And with that, I thank you all for the attention.
Okay, yeah, thanks for your presentation and presented concepts and numbers. Actually, just on this slide, I have a very detailed question. So I didn't get, what exactly do you compare this 5.2% reduction to? So what is a comparison? Where do you save this money?
Yeah, so the treatment cost, so this number, that would need to reduce, our sensor would need to reduce that by 5.2%. And that would equilibrate. So then the cost of having our sensor would equal to around 5% of this number. So the more costs we can prevent by implementing our sensor, the more beneficial it would be for the hospital, basically. And that equilibrium is 5.2%.
So that means actually you need more than 5.2 to be profitable, no?
Yes, yes,
okay.
exactly.
And one more question. What exactly, how do you, it's good to have a number in mind, but why do you think you can reach this 5.2%? Yeah, I mean, what is actually the value that you create?
Yeah, so that would be based on, well, the earlier you can detect the AKI, the less severe it will be. And because the pricing really incredibly scales with the severity, we feel that if you can prevent a couple of dialyses, it would be quite quickly profitable. Because if you can prevent a couple of these $57,000 cases, then you'll greatly reduce this number as well here. Mm-hmm. So
okay, but you didn't have, let's say, but you didn't make a direct correlation of, let's say, how probable this is to happen in each patient. And
exactly. So for that, we would need some clinical testing to see how viable the 5.2 indeed is. But we feel like it's a reachable number.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, it seems not too far-fetched. Maybe you can even make much more than that. Okay.
We hope.
And well, that's it for now. I'll come back to you later with actually, I had another question, but I'm not sure. Yeah. In your TRD, you also mentioned your partners that you want to partner up with. Mm-hmm. But it did not really get completely clear to me. One key partner that you mentioned is PalmSense.
Yes.
And to me, to be honest, it didn't seem like a partner. It seemed more like a supplier. What is, in your understanding, the difference between a partner and a supplier?
Ooh, that's a good question. I feel like that a supplier would be a person that you just only buy things from, and a partner would, like, you have a lot more interaction, so more back and forth kind of situation, whereas a supplier is more one direction.
Absolutely. And to me, it read at least that you just purchase components that are already available. A partnership, I would also expect that you develop, let's say, components together, or maybe they maybe make an adaptation towards your goals because they see a clear profit line for them.
Yeah, so where we would hope to have some partnership is, well, actually, I lied a little bit on my slides. So here I said that the number of measurements that the MStat Pico, which the PalmSense provides, I said that the number is 4,000 measurements. That's actually not true. It's probably a lot higher. But we'd like to send them back to PalmSense, and they can test if it's okay. And then, so there's more of a back and forth situation going on in that sense.
Okay, I understand. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. So one thing I would like to get a bit more information is the time to market and how much it would cost you to get to market, because you will have to invest a certain amount of money before you enter the market, and that has to be factored in the cost. For example, you factor in here. So do you have an idea of how much time, how much money you would need to enter the market?
That's honestly a great question. Do you guys have a? No, it's not one that we've thought about that much in depth so far. We have some more contacts that we would like to consider taking up contact with, such as the Nierstichting from the Netherlands and stuff like that, and maybe they would, like in some cooperation sense, be able to help us in that. But I would say that it's a matter of years, but I am not in a position to give a specific number to that.
Yeah,
yet.
and you'll also have to need to factor in the amortization of that investment in your cost structure, because you'll have to recuperate that cost to make profit. Yeah. Maybe if you can also add one more question on the labor cost, for example, because one of the aspects is that once you produce, have you factored in the labor cost in these estimates here?
Yeah, so most of the labor costs are also included in the functionalized CGE or GCE, sorry. So that's where actually most of the labor is, because they need to be produced on mass scale, and they need to be functionalized and tested. And so everything, labor-wise, almost everything is in there. The rest is...
That's technical, but you also need marketing, you'll need management, you'll need also distribution channels. So was that factored into these costs?
A bit of yes and no, not specifically, but if we have a bit of a feeling of how big our margin is at the moment, and we can decrease that a bit, so there's still room for like financial room for marketing that can be paid off in a reasonable time. Right?
Usually, your cost of goods should be at most 1/3 of the sales price, because you need to offset that cost with marketing, of course, and then profit as well. But right, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I was wondering, I could not make up in your TRD how your sensor would work or look like at the end user part. So in hospital, I think you're going to use it. So how would that work in the whole system, and what kind of device are you thinking about? In total, actually.
Okay, so that's where I think this division between cartridge and the functionalized electrode also comes in. So the cartridge has a long lifetime, and the electrode needs to be, it lasts only for a short time. So we need to be able to take that out and put a new one in, and that needs to happen on a daily basis. But that's
that's a technical part, but I'm more interested in how would it work in the department, what patients, how would it be used by the doctor. So I don't think I saw like a model or something of your sensor. So I'm really looking forward to how you would promote your sensor, and how would it be used by your end user, by your...
Right, okay, yeah. So there we envision it to be implemented for every patient entering the door. So often AKI is a complication that's not really predicted and not the iotropic problem. So if we attach every patient coming through the door with a sensor, you can like early capture a lot of the AKI patients, and that would be the strategy in that.
So every patient entering a hospital, you would...
or not necessarily entering, but has admission, so stays for a night, and basically. So all the patients that need a bed and need
monitoring. Yeah, that's going to be pretty expensive, maybe, to do all the patients, and a lot of them don't have any kidney issues. So could you maybe specify a little bit more? What would your target population, for instance, be?
The financial case that I calculated through, that would be without any specifications yet, and we would need the 5.2%. So if we or a hospital would want to specify a little bit better, there would be a possibility. For example, if you only do ICU patients, there you get a lot better return on investment. So the ICU specifically would be a very good place to start. But yeah, the problem is, of course, that often it arises unforeseen, and then suddenly you're there with a patient having AKI.
You do have more high-risk patients, for instance, ICU patients, post-op patients.
1 minute left. Thank you. Another.
So it's maybe more of a technical question. You say the electrode of your system is currently the limiting factor. Do you foresee any improvements on that in the future, that it can be used for a longer time?
Yeah, that might be. So this is still also in an optimization because we use an enzyme on there which degrades over time. And you, of course, need to be 100% certain that it works. We now went with the 24. Of course, we would be very happy to optimize this to a higher number. But for the economic argument, I took a low number to be certain. And I cannot make any promises, but it would be very nice, of course.
Yeah. And I guess since you're using also off-the-shelf hardware, that would hold the same for the other components in your system. So eventually, if you would go to larger numbers, all of those costs would go down, and also your margins would equally go up.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So the next team is test.
Check. All right. All right. Consider the last 2 years and 3 months of your life. Consider how much you've worked at your study or your job, the vacations you've been on, or the hobbies and sports you've practiced. 2 years and 3 months is also the average waiting time for a donor kidney in the Netherlands. This time is both physically and emotionally challenging for patients. They often require dialysis, which is time-consuming and puts a lot of strain on their health. There's also a lot of uncertainty from not knowing when you will receive a donor kidney and having a fluctuating health status. At TEST, we believe it is most important to help these patients who require it the most. So first, a bit of context. When a donor kidney becomes available from a deceased donor, it has to be preserved until it can be transplanted into the patient. This process is very crucial in the transplantation process because the donor kidney has to be preserved optimally while being outside of the body, and a clinician has to assess whether the kidney can be used for transplantation. So for the process of preservation, multiple methods exist. So what has long been the golden standard for this process is static cold storage, which is basically storing the kidney in a cold box. This method is simple, cheap, and effective, and that's why it's been used for a long time. But now, since 8 years ago, hypothermic machine perfusion has been the standard of care in the Netherlands. And in this case, the kidney is also connected to a machine which circulates a liquid through the kidney in order to prevent damage during the preservation time. What is now being researched is normothermic machine perfusion, or NMP. And in this case, the kidney is actually preserved at body temperature, such that it can be metabolically active. What makes this so unique is that it can facilitate organ repair. So this means that injured kidneys can actually be restored in their functioning and used for transplantation. So as a consequence, more donors would then become available for transplantation. So, for example, donors of older age that have damaged kidneys. But before this implementation can be realized in practice, it is crucial that we can monitor the kidney functioning during this organ repair in real time. So what you see here is a schematic of a machine perfusion device. And what we have created over the past few months is Renal Revive. a device which can be connected to the machine perfusion device in a plug-and-play fashion, and it can be used to monitor the functioning of the kidneys in real time. This data can then be given to the clinician, who can assess if and when the kidney is ready to be transplanted. This sensor would be priced at 4,000 euros per year, which includes maintenance and software support, and the supplementary cartridges would cost 200 euros per piece, only one of which is needed per transplantation. If we consider the market for this product, we can see that in the Netherlands there are 7 transplantation centers which use machine perfusion devices. Collectively, they now perform 500 transplants per year from deceased donors. But this number can and should become much higher, because we should perform more kidney transplants. What is expected is that the number will increase to 750 in 5 years due to technological innovations. The time to market of our product is expected to be around 6 years, based on the developments of NMP and the standard times of novel devices in the medical world to get to market. So once our product is brought to market, we expect that transplantation centers will be able to make more successful transplantations, and the clinicians will be able to be aided in their decision-making during the process. Another important stakeholder is the health insurance company, because they cover the treatments. And basically what happens is that when the waiting time for a donor kidney becomes shorter, less dialysis is needed. And as dialysis is the single most expensive treatment in the healthcare system, this leads to lower cost for the healthcare insurance companies, which makes them incentivized to support kidney transplantations. Lastly, for the patient, of course, it's very important that they have better health outcomes after their transplantation and have a shorter waiting time to receive one. Can I finish it? Last slide? These outcomes define the quality of life of the patient, which is really necessary, such that they can enjoy their jobs, studies, vacations, hobbies, and sports as well. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation, and let's directly jump into one key aspect of yours. I like the field of application that you want to go for the kidney preservation techniques. And I have one question, because you mentioned the normothermic preservation, which is currently under investigation. If I'm not mistaken, you mentioned that it leads to a tissue repair. And I was wondering if this is true. Is it a tissue repair, or are we speaking more about less deterioration of the tissue during transportation? Or can you really repair, let's say? Can you improve it better than from the day that you, let's say, explanted from the patient? So what is the repair aspect here?
Yes, a repair is not really restoring it to full function. You can't just magically cure a kidney, of course. But normally when you would implant these kidneys, there will be, bad outcomes for the patient, because they would quickly need a new transplant or need dialysis. But with this process of what they call organ repair, these outcomes are much better after transplantation, so they can go longer with this kidney, which means it's useful for the patient to receive this transplant.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And if I also when I read your TRD, you also explained that this opens up new avenues for organ transplantation, because you can also now assess kidneys which have a let's say a lower health score, and still use these for transplantation. I have a question: if this works well, who would be who would be these kidneys given to? So who would be the recipient of such kidneys? Because they're kind of still, let's say, not optimal, like they are already deteriorated in quality. Yeah. So who would be the recipients in this case?
It would be those patients who consent to this. So I think this is the current construct where they can safely consent to using a a donor from an extended criteria donor.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then one more technical question to the integration. You show a very nice scheme of the perfusion device. If I'm so the perfusion device, it's more at the moment more hypothetical, or is it did you take a drawing of an existing device?
Yeah, the devices exist, so that's from an existing. I think I can show it. Yeah, it's this one. So this is based on an existing device. And then what you see is that there are sample collection sites, which is where our device would connect to. So it's sort of plug and play where you don't really need to integrate the two entirely, but there are places where you can connect them.
Okay, perfect. That's very good to show this picture. So now I have one question. So your sensing is implemented there, but sensing is one action. Another is controlling. So let's say you measure now an abnormal level. What would be the reaction, and how do you directly control the different options that you have here? Infusion port, roller pump, oxygenator, etc. So how do you have already an idea how this is interfaced?
Yes, so it's up to the clinician to make these decisions. So they would have the data to see what needs to be done, and there's also a lot of research in what you can do to provide, for example, nutrients to the kidney. So indeed, if you could add nutrients to the circuit based on what you see from the data from our sensor, then that could also make the organ repair process a lot better.
And this is perfect. That's exactly where I wanted to go. Can you give me one example? Let's say you measure a specific biomarker, and what would be the reaction that that the clinician can change here? Can you give me one example?
I cannot give a concrete example. Mostly because the papers we read also say there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot to be researched. So I wouldn't be able to exactly pinpoint what they can. Maybe you have a better idea of it.
So currently in this process there are no nutrients, so there's only metabolites, and it's only maintaining it in a healthy state. But the functioning of kidney is not simulated. So there is research going on to monitor these nutrients, but it's relatively new field. So we have to look at the outcomes of the research, what nutrients will do in the circuitry. But that's unexplored areas.
Okay, thank you very much.
In between, I was wondering, with the donor kidneys, you measure creatinine, right? So where does creatinine come from? I know, but do you know?
Yes, so it would be added to the perfusate again in this place. And I want to add to that the design we have for our sensor is generalizable. So with the current research being done on different biomarkers, our sensor could also be adapted to use different biomarkers.
But if you have a kidney donor, it's out of the body. Then if you measure creatinine, it disappears because creatinine is created from muscle. So you don't have a body. So that will be the biomarker you're going to measure here to see whether the kidney function is, stable, I guess, but you don't have input of creatinine.
Yeah, you would artificially add it to the infusion port. So then you can still see if it is able to filter this creatinine.
Okay. Then why? Yeah, so you have another number of biomarkers that you might. There's a gold standard. Did you think about using that biomarker? Because creatinine is something you can use measure easily in the body, but inulina is the gold standard for measuring because it's not reabsorbed in the kidney. So it might be more or better to use another biomarker. And did you also think of other markers of damage? Because it's you want to keep the kidney healthy, right? I think it's a very a nice. Let me say that in first. It's a very nice idea, but you want to see whether your kidney stays healthy, right? So did you think about other biomarkers? Is it possible with your system?
Yeah, to be honest, I read about different biomarkers being able to give a good indication of different types of damage to the kidney, but I can't recall from my head which they are. I don't know if you.
Well, the healthy state is already being monitored in normothermic machine perfusion. It's the simulation of functioning which we're looking after. So we focused on creatinine for that sense because that can give us information on the functioning of the kidney, but the state, for example, if there's tissue damage, that's already being done in normothermic machine perfusion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for the answers. Actually clarified a number of points, but you haven't touched on financials. So how much would it cost to run the test? What's the profit margin? Do you have any more information on the finances?
Yes, so we have the prices, which is indeed a limited amount of financial information we gave during the pitch. But for the production of the device, it's mostly material costs, but for the cartridge, it's mostly labor cost, which we require because the production cost is low, the material cost is low. And then we have considered the market volume of these transplantation centers, but also the possibility in the future to expand this to different countries in Europe.
Yeah. So what would be the yearly revenues given the number of centers in the Netherlands and the cost that you project? How much will be the total revenue? What will be the profit and number of employees that you could sustain with that?
Currently it would be a few 100,000 of revenue, which is not a lot. Also, not to provide the team of 8 with a full salary. Mm-hmm. So the first few years would definitely be based on ambition.
So it would be good to project yourself on a year-to-year basis to see how much money you would need and see how much you need to sell, how many units you need to sell to make enough profit to sustain the company. Thank you.
One short last question.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation and very interesting technology. It is clear for the Netherlands what you're trying to do, but I wonder what is next. I mean, do you have a vision and ambition to grow?
Yep. So we think the Netherlands is a very good starting point because it's such an innovating country in this field. So there's a lot of innovation being done in transplantations. But the European system for kidney allocation is, it's European-wide. So we think then different European countries would be good to expand to have the Netherlands as an example of what can be done, and then to implement this technology in different countries.
And do you have an idea about the market size for the EU case?
No, not from the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah, 10 minutes are over. Thank you. So thank you all for the pitches. You can all go to the lunch in the central hall from Atlas.